Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This question is for Mr. Pratt. The Flint water crisis tragically taught our country a new lesson of the dangers of old infrastructure. In allowing our water infrastructure to crumble, millions of families find themselves in real danger of drinking lead-contaminated water. Not every community is satisfied with this dangerous status quo. In Madison, Wisconsin, local officials demonstrated leadership in throwing away Band-Aid fixes. They actually, at the local level, committed to a decade-long infrastructure project that culminated in fully replacing every lead service line in Madison. Now, when my constituents learn about the infrastructure initiative completed in Wisconsin, they don't understand why the children of Wisconsin deserve greater protection than the children of Illinois or of Delaware. There's no good answer, and I think that's why this Congress needs to act swiftly and decisively to provide states and local governments with direct funding support, far greater than our efforts to date, to jumpstart vital water infrastructure projects. As a state official, Mr. Pratt, who must struggle daily in balancing the needs to address fiscal challenges and meet the needs of your residents, would you concur that states such as Delaware both needs and would put to good use direct federal investments in critical infrastructure, such as safe drinking water?
Well, I'll answer that from the perspective of somebody who handles beach management and wetlands management, not water supply management, but certainly the overarching theme is that we have not invested as we should have as a nation in that infrastructure. I would certainly I'll welcome any other comments from the panel, but it's not my world of expertise in water supply. But certainly the stories we hear from around the nation are compelling stories about how I think that the overarching issue is that we have an appetite for construction of new and not much of an appetite as a nation for maintenance of what we have built in the past or improvement of what we have built in the past. And that's a philosophical point I think that needs to change. But I'm not an expert in water supply issues, but thank you for the question anyway.
Well, not necessarily just water supply. You know, the people of Illinois sent me to the Senate with a clear message. Americans are ready, willing, and eager to start rebuilding our nation at all levels, at all infrastructure. When I travel across Illinois, from rural communities to suburban neighborhoods to urban centers, there's a unifying call on Congress. Please work to modernize our nation's infrastructure. Make it a priority, whether it is roads, rail. Simply put, Illinoisans want Congress to place a big bet on America. They want their tax dollars invested in American workers and in American companies to rebuild and modernize American infrastructure, and we must go beyond road, rail, and bridges. We should be wise in making sure our investments prepare us to succeed in the 21st century. This includes investments in broadband to empower every family to access high-speed internet. In fact, you know, I have parts of Illinois where our kids can't do their homework because they don't have access to broadband. We can't attract businesses to rural communities because there's no broadband. So it's not just about the water or the bridge or the road, it's all of it. And I do think that there's a role here to play for federal government to come in and provide those resources in partnership with local and states. I just don't want us to fall into the trap that we think, oh, Madison replaced all of their own lead water supply, so that's what every state should do. To each their own, and anyone on the witness panel can certainly talk to this, but how important is the role of federal government coming in with federal dollars to help you be able to do this?
I'll answer that from my perspective too. It's in the world I work in. It's very imperative that the federal government take an involved position. Home rule would indicates that local communities will develop their own land use plan and will develop as they see is best for their community. That's across the board of residential and industrial and recreational areas and commercial areas. And when that fabric of community is built, if there's anything that is imperiled, it's usually the federal government that has to come and bail out the aftermath. If there's a complete breakdown of water supply, if there's a tornado, if there's a forest fire, if there's an earthquake, or if there's a coastal storm, it is the federal government that responds and has to respond after the suffering has occurred, whether it's pollution of water and no water supply for a community, or it's a community that has no roads left after a storm, or a tornado has wiped out a community in Oklahoma. It is the federal government that will have to come out and put the dollars up there. Investment ahead of time, before the disaster, before the crisis has occurred, is an important turning point we need to make. And I believe absolutely the federal government has a tremendous amount to save by that investment.
I thank you for those comments. Anybody else on the panel? Yeah, on the end.
I would just say that 70% of our construction dollars for transportation in Colorado come from the federal government. And so it's incredibly important that there is a strong federal role in transportation investment. And on the broadband comment, Governor Hickenlooper has directed us to work with the economic development folks to provide broadband. I believe that broadband are the new highways of the 21st century, and it's incredibly important for us in Colorado as well.
I'm out of time, Mr. Pounds. You'll have to respond on the record. Thank you. I yield back, Mr. Chairman.